morning again to all the enthusiast people in the space industry, professionals, students, and general attendees. I'd like to give the personal and my honor to introduce our three panelists of today's webinar. First of all, Dr. Salvador Landeros Ayala, Mexican Space Agency General Director. Dr. Angel Abud, Madrid, Colorado School of Mines Director, Center for Space. Dr. Carlos Robles, Mexican Federation of Aerospace Industries, FEMIA, Central Region Vice President. Thank you to be here. I'd like to explain shortly the dynamics of this webinar, which is very simple. Every panelist has 3 minutes to explain each question. Let's start with Dr. Salvador Landeros, please. Okay, first question is, how satellite broadband and space exploration, Earth observation, and militarization are expected to boost the space business? Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, hello, nice to meet you. Hello, everyone. And thank you very much for the invitation. Well, the applications for satellite broadbands are very big and important in the next future. New services, the new technologies, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, machine learning, education, e-commerce, medicine, telemedicine, and others. That will bring a lot and big opportunities. As well in air observation, right now we have to grow in this part because the applications are very important for all, like agriculture, natural disasters, like droughts, fires, floodings, hurricanes, meteorology, oceanography, climate change. So the challenges are very big. And as well as the space exploration in 24, 25, man is going to come back to the moon. And also the missions to Mars. So the following years, the increment in the use of satellite imagery, not only in earth science, but for other economic impact productivity sectors, like, as I mentioned, finance and energy will increase considerably in the use of business analytics. Startup creation in the space field industry will increase exponentially, and it has been doing probably at the pace of 20% a year. Satellite connectivity will be essential to support and recompense supply chains, regional integration, and strategic sectors after COVID-19, and multi-agency collaboration will be needed more than ever to foster the progress and economic development for the world in the future. Let's see some important data. The satellite industry is more than $270 billion. Ground equipment, 130, services, 123 billions, construction, satellite construction, 12, launch, 5, exploration, 99, and commercial human space flights, 2 billion. So we are going to grow in this last part a
Thank
lot.
you very much, Dr. Landeros. 3 minutes are over.
Okay.
Now we proceed with Dr. Angel Labud. Please, same question. You need to repeat me. I will repeat it.
No, that's fine, Benjamin. And thank you so much for the invitation to share this panel with esteemed colleagues here and be able to provide some information about or my views on the role of Mexico in space. You ask about 3 important things. You talk about militarization, space exploration, and also the role of observation. These are the 3 activities that have driven our space activities since the beginning of the space age in the 1950s. Back then, it was so-called sequential. You know, what drove us to space was the competition between the United States and the Soviet Union to achieve technological superiority. Then we started launching probes for scientific applications. And then we realized that space had value. That in fact, the view from above could give us what we have now: weather forecasting, global communications, GPS systems, and the ability to monitor the health of our planet. What's different now is that back then it was sequential. Now all of them are happening at the same time. You have strategic interest from space, not just the US and Russia, but now you got China and India and Japan, and you have interest in space exploration from more than 70 space agencies around the world. You have also a very robust commercial space business, which is mostly based on communication satellites, which is about a $400 billion in industry operations. But right now, you will think that they're now tripping into each other, but here are the opportunities. How can they all help to achieve their different goals and have the expertise from everybody? And there's one important thing that is new, is the role of industry now. You have interest from all sorts of companies, small, large, and medium, to get involved in the space. So this is a very this is a great time to be involved in space for the world, for Mexico, and for anybody that wants to use the space for a variety of applications.
Very well. Thank you very much. Going to the question, same for Dr. Carlos Robles, please. We have 3 minutes, please, Carlos.
Thank you, Benjamin. Well, yes, as both doctors already talk, I would say that there are key drivers for this new space era. I would call it the new space era. And it is because there are new space companies. I mean, the technology was there, and especially the NASA had all the technology. But what happened is that with the capital investment that private companies are doing, now it's being a bit more democratized. So it's everybody can reach that. It's going to be cheaper. It's going to turn cheaper. We're gonna see new space companies arising, old aerospace companies turning into new space companies. The second point is also the evolution of small satellites. I mean, as technology has been able to compress the size of technology in smaller bits of packages, such as the cell phones and stuff, those are just examples. That also helped to make or help to the satellites to be smaller. And that's very important because it's easier to carry them to the space. It's easier to maintain them. The technology is more reliable, and that's always very good. Therefore, there's going to be cheaper launches and rideshare opportunities that we just saw. I mean, there was the AztecSat-1 that went on a Falcon X to the International Station. It was a ride share that probably 20, 30 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to see that. And there's also innovation in communication technologies. That's very helpful because that's going to lower the cost of data. Therefore, we're going to have greater access to data. And that will mean opportunities, as Dr. Madrid just said, opportunities for emerging countries such as Mexico. So that's going to bring a boost for startups. And all of this, it's going to be in an environment of greater transparency and competition. Therefore, what I see is that the broadband, the space exploration, the air observation are really all boosting at the same time the space business. And it's something that probably a couple of years ago we were not forecasting, but today it's a reality and it's going to grow exponentially, and the speed is going to increase exponentially. Therefore, we're going to see lots of advances in this field in the next years. So this is the time to get in, to put interest, to put investment in it, because it's going to grow very fast.
Thank you, Carlos. Very interesting. Okay, let's go to the second question. This is for Dr. Angel Labud. Please, Angel. We have 3 minutes. What is the trend of space launches in recent years?
I would say that space launches have exploded in a good sense. Yeah, there has been some mishaps, but exploded in terms of the increase of activity in space. There's not a day that goes by that you don't open up your news and see that there was a launch from Europe, from the United States, from China, somewhere in New Zealand, somewhere in the equator. It has literally increased in an exponential way. And this is good news, because what this means is that it's no longer the US and the Soviet Union launching for scientific purposes. It's for all sorts of reasons. And what that has brought is, first of all, competition. Now, if you want to launch something into space, you can look around and see who's going to give you the best price and the best capability to launch your payload. And that is very important, because that has given access to space to countries, to companies, to universities that have not had this in the past. Not only that, there's so many launches out there that you start seeing free space that companies are trying to either sell or even probably sometimes give it away because they have to launch anyway. Universities are benefiting tremendously from this because they have a free ride to space. They can test their systems. Companies also can benefit because the cost to transportation is coming down. And this is key, because if there's something that has put an obstacle in terms of space, is the cost of transportation. That is why only a few countries have gone up there. Less than 600 people have reached space. We have to lower that transportation cost. We're seeing it at the low Earth orbit from companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin in the future. But think about what you can do in the future. If you can refuel in space, if you can obtain the propellants from space to lower transportation, then you open up a whole variety of opportunities. Yes, there's space tourism, but think about lowering the cost. You can now refuel satellites. Now you can look at opportunities that you cannot even think about if you start opening up all these new opportunities by reducing transportation costs. So launches, the launch industry is right now probably at its best that I have seen in the many years that I have been around this business.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Landeros, please, same question. We have 3 minutes.
Yes. We can explain this with two important examples. One is SpaceX, and the other one is a space launch system. SpaceX is flying many times, considering, for example, to put in orbit the Starlink constellation. If we have now around 1,800,000 Starlink satellites on orbit, low Earth orbit, and if we consider that each launch takes about 60, so they have to launch very often, as never before. And that is one example. The other example is the launches to the International Space Station. That is one launch per month approximately. And the other is the low orbit constellations, the new constellation, like I said, Starlink, and the another ones like OneWeb, and another launches for suborbital, for human travels. So launch vehicles are increasingly, due to new manufacturing technology, like 3D print, and the cost is reducing considerably. So these launches, plus the launches to the moon and to Mars, that will be a very big trend. Thank you.
Very well, Dr. Landeros. Next question also for you. What has been Mexico participation in space launches recently?
Well, recently we have had two launches. Three launches, I would say. One was 1.5 years ago, the AztecSat, and another one was with the NanoConnect. It's a nano satellite made by UNAM. That this was launched by an Indian rocket, and 1 month ago it was launched the D2 Atlacom-1 that was launched also by SpaceX. And in this project, there is investment, Mexican investment. And the Mexican Space Agency participate as invited. But the other point is that we are promoting the development of rockets. 3 months ago, we organized the first conference in experimental rocketry in Baja California with the cluster, aerospace cluster in Baja California, as well as the company BID 360. So also we have a lab in our center, space center in this Mexico state for designing rockets, small rockets. So that is our participation in the space launch area. Thank you.
This is a very interesting program is conducting in Baja California. Next question, Dr. Landeros, 3 minutes, please. What has been Mexico participation in space launches recently is very interesting and is very important for Mexico to be part of this. Next question, Doctor. What has been the role of Mexico federal government in space projects in recent years?
Well, there are many points here. I will try to explain in 3 minutes. First of all is to plan the future of our satellite telecommunications, our orbital positions, and to intensify their use. We have to consider new technologies like throughput satellites, also to develop air stations, but to go to other higher frequencies. That is the one important point. To be competitive with other geostationary satellites, as well with the low orbit satellites. And the second part here is the orbital, the air observation. Air observation applications. We have some air station receiving image from different satellites, but we have to consider to have our own air observation satellite. We are working on that. Another point is to consider the space development centers that we already have in Zacatecas and in Mexico State. In Zacatecas is for constructing nanosatellites, and in Mexico State we have 3 labs. One is related about image air observation images, the analysis, the analysis of the images, processing of imaging. And the third one is the design of rockets. So we are working on that. That is important. And another, we have other projects in the next generation of AztecSat, constellation. We are working, we have defined the plan. Also the one Latin American nanosatellite. We have also the human capital forming, working on these projects, I mentioned now. And we also have projects with Latin America. We have a program to have a mechanism to collaborate together. As a matter of fact, this is the first stage for having the Latin American and Caribbean agency.
Thank you very much, Dr. Landeros. So we're going to the next question for Dr. Angel Abud. Please, 3 minutes. What's the level of funding that universities in Mexico had to encourage greater participation in space projects?
Well, I think this question would be actually great for Dr. Landeros, since he's very much in touch of how the space agency is funding those. But from my point of view, from being outside Mexico, what I have seen is a level of participation that it's much higher than before. I'm very stunned by the level of projects that I see coming from students in Mexico in a variety of things. And not just with the United States, I see them now participating with the European Space Agency. I see it now on a variety of topics. You see now projects on nanosatellites. There's actually a team in Mexico that is going to put a nanosatellite in the space station, on rocketry, like Dr. Landeros was saying, even on areas that are not your typical space industry. Students in Mexico are very entrepreneurial, and they're actually taking matters into their own hands and entering competitions for rovers, automation, excavators that we're going to need probably on the moon. I've seen teams of students everywhere doing this, and this is very encouraging because they're not only receiving funding from the space agency, maybe from their own universities, but also they're seeking prizes and awards from other for competitions, and that is very encouraging. And I see that from a variety of institutions that I didn't used to see before. Obviously, you see the UNAM, you see Puebla, you see Monterrey, you see even those universities that are now offering aerospace programs like Querétaro and Chihuahua, that they're sending their students to spend 6 months or a year in the United States. Once they come here, they not only study, but now they get the bug, not the COVID bug, but the space bug, and they start participating in this type of projects. And then they come back with ideas of how to do this in their own universities. So the level of interest in students is very important. I think the industry, the private industry, should get more involved in this. It behooves them to provide funding to students to develop projects, because they are the future of our space program, and they should be encouraged to do all of the activities that they're doing.
Very well. Thank you, Dr. Abud. Same question for Dr. Landeros. 3 minutes, please, Dr. Landeros.
Yes. In the last years, Mexican Space Agency, together with CONACYT, we were supporting space projects to the universities. So that results in important projects. That was the sectorial funds that now is changing. We are creating a new program, a new agreement between the Mexican Space Agency and CONACYT. That is one part. The other part is right now the funding is few in the universities, internally in the universities, but they know the importance of space, and they are looking for for more budget in this field, for more internal budget in this field. So there are some private universities that they tell us that they are going to find more budget for space projects, as well as public universities. They are very interested and they are finding more projects. So they will have two possibilities. One is the internal budget, and the other one is this new agreement that we are working with CONACYT to support this kind of projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Landeros. Next question is for Dr. Angel Abud. 3 minutes. What collaboration strangles exit between Mexico and the United States and/or other organizations to promote this sector and space projects?
Well, it's, and again, this is something that Dr. Landeros can address in terms of collaborations that the space agency has had. But again, what I have seen is that the collaborations have been very strong with the US, but not only that. I mean, I see how Mexico is now collaborating with the European Space Agency and other countries. And this is a good point to bring up, because it used to be that we will compare what are our relationship with the United States, because probably the United States was and is still the largest country doing this, but it's no longer the case. I mean, like I mentioned, now there's more than 72 space agencies out there that are working in space activities. So it's important to focus on how Mexico can collaborate with those agencies that are at their level. If you look at the budgets of the Mexican Space Agency and look around what other agencies have similar ones in the same order of magnitude, you see Israel, you see Australia, you see South Africa. These are agencies that are looking at how to participate in space on areas that were not there before. Israel just sent a probe to the moon. It failed, but they're going for the second time in the process of offering their services to access the moon for the many countries that want to do so. Australia wants to focus on what they're good at, which is robotic operations, in mining operations. They want to use robotics for anything that is going to be utilized in space. South Africa is saying, we have never participated in space. How can we do this? We have experience of hundreds of years in the extractive industries. Is this a way that we can do this? Same thing has to happen with Mexico. Mexico has started looking at what else they can bring into the field that will be unique. We are great at telecommunications satellites, Earth observations, and Benjamin, you know about this. Why not using the same capability of observing the Earth and just pointing out to the moon, and now giving the information that all countries need for topography of the moon, where the resources are, where to land, where are the different areas in which we'll have power and communications. So again, it's a matter of finding ways to collaborate with other countries and with other industries to see where is that Mexico can fit in. And that's where the collaborations that I see that are coming in the future for Mexico.
Very well. Thank you, Dr. Abud. It's interesting that part of the collaborations. Very important, very important. Dr. Carlos Robles, please, 3 minutes for same question.
Yes, Benjamin, thank you. As a strategy, what I see, and I see this very often, is that there's companies with presence already in Mexico, especially in engineering and manufacturing, that have space divisions. I mean, some of them are from France, from Europe, the United States, and they are already having some presence in, for example, the rover that went to Mars. I mean, some of the cables, optical cables for the cameras were done in Mexico, or Mexico had something to do with engineering. So that's one strategy. I mean, companies that already are in the country that have bigger corporatives and corporate divisions and in space, and they are really using their presence in the country for engineering or manufacturing activities. The second thing would be the due diligence from big players into manufacturing plants from aerospace. I've seen big companies looking into potential suppliers, already established manufacturing plants, which with them they don't have any contract yet, but they are visiting, doing all the due diligence in order to see how this can be helpful or useful in the future. The third one is NASA is already having some agreements with universities such as UPAEP in Puebla, for example. The Aztecs Hub, which I mentioned before, was actually a collaboration existing between NASA and some universities. They were looking for a university, UPAEP was ready, and then they developed this nano satellite, this CubeSat. And so it's going to keep evolving and growing in the future because we were successful, and NASA still needs these universities, as Dr. Abud mentioned, which Mexican students are really entrepreneurial, and they really take things for themselves. And the fourth one is that there are already established companies, such as, for example, Thrusters Unlimited, which already have an agreement to buy all the technology, engineering, and manufacturing rights for satellites in Mexico from the European agencies. So there's also some portion of these companies that are looking to bring the technology into the country to manufacture some sort of either satellites or components for satellites, in order to develop and keep growing this, the space industry in Mexico. So I think this is very important. This is something we all in the aerospace sector should be supporting, should be working towards this kind of agreement. And as Dr. Abud also mentioned, it's not only the United States. It's usually the United States because it's big and because it's close, but the European agencies are also working on this. And I'm quite sure that Dr. Landeros will talk as well about the United Nations forums, which are also part globally of what we're looking into the space and how to make people or humankind approach to the space. And in this case, particularly Mexico also being part of this collaboration and these initiatives.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Very interesting commentaries. Dr. Landeros, please, in question.
Yes, thank you. Well, we have important agreements and collaboration with the main space agencies around the world. We have collaboration and agreement with NASA. We are working in some projects together. One of them is the next Aztec generation, the constellation, and others. And we are doing projects with Roscosmos from Russia. We have an agreement with JAXA from Japan, with ESA, the European Space Agency, with India, with CONAE, this is the Argentinian Space Agency, with China, with CNES from France, and others. But we are now trying to be closer with Latin America. That is the idea of having the Latin American and Caribbean agency, a space agency. And also we have a collaboration with UNOSA from United Nations, COPUOS. We work very close with COPUOS, with NOAA. But in addition to a space agency and to government organizations, it's important the participation of the private sector. So we are promoting to have more collaboration with the private sector. So that is what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Landeros. Very interesting. Okay, next question goes to Dr. Carlos Robles. 3 minutes, please. What's Mexico potential for space challenges and opportunities? 3 minutes, please.
Well, first of all, at FEMIA, we recently created the Space Commission, of which you're the president, because we understand not only the relevance of this emerging industry, but the potential it represents in opportunities to have Mexican companies in fields like design, manufacturing, project management, and operations control. In the case of new space, we have a big chance to be pioneers of a new emerging industry. And what really we can use in our favor are the credentials of our success in aviation. In 15 years, we were able to become one of the top suppliers of the aerospace world globally. And that should talk for ourselves in terms of quality delivery, commitment, technology development. it really, we have that credibility, we have the talent, and in this particular case, we have the alignment and willingness of important entities such as the Aerospace Mexican Agency, NASA, FEMIA, and all the companies that we represent there at FEMIA. There's a huge market there. I mean, new space for the next 7 years will grow sustainably around 5%. If we add to that figure the 3.5% growth of aviation, it represents a very good 8.5%. And just to close on numbers, today the two markets combined represent close to $370 billion. Let's challenge ourselves to get a 5% market share of that big cake, and our slice would represent around $18.5 billion as a low aim. That's not bad. And especially if I firmly believe we're very well positioned and it was not for free. It meant 15 years of trust, effort, passion from foreign and national capital, and many challenges, but also a wonderful dream that came true on the realization of thousands of people. Those companies that we have in Mexico are already certified AS 9100 or NADCAP, and they have a big, very first step, which is the understanding of the culture capable of sustaining the operations delivering within the aerospace sector. That's not cheap. That's not easy to find in emerging countries. We have it here in Mexico. And therefore, I do see that we understand the specifications, regulations, and we have proved that we have the ability to work on the standard and provide the services that are needed. New space is still, you know, a bit of a foreign term in Mexico, if you want, but we're not talking about having a nano satellite or a couple of satellites. We're talking about constellations here. We're talking about being part of something bigger, and we already demonstrated that we understand what it means. We have the potential. We've done it before with the aviation industry, with commercial aviation and business aviation. Now we need to prove it for space. And I do think that there's a huge opportunity out there, and we have to take it because we have what we need to do it.
Very well. Thank you very much, Dr. Robles. Okay, same question for Dr. Salvador Landeros, please.
Well, we have a very big tradition of space activities since 1962, when was created the Space Commission by presidential decree. After that, many experiences have came, and in telecommunications, we start with our own satellites in 1985. Right now, we have 7 telecommunication satellites on 4 orbital position. So the experience in telecommunications is also very, we have very good experts in this area. And in air observation, since 1962, we start with projects on air observations. And now we have a very important group of experts on air observation. In the part of space, the exploration space, we have been experts participating in Curiosity and in ExoMars. As a matter of fact, we have a project to launch micro robots at the end of the year to the moon, to the moon to make some experiments. So the potential is tremendous, but what we need is to invest more in all these areas. The people, we have the right people, but we need to have more investment in order to give the opportunities to these experts, to our scientific and technological community. Our scientific and technological community is ready for doing any kind of project of any size. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Landeros. Okay, pues this has been a very interesting questions and more interesting answers. We're going now to Dr. Angela Wood, please, question.
I think my fellow panelists hit the nail on the head in their own areas of expertise. Dr. Landeros talked about the role of Mexican Space Agency and the government, and how Mexico is very well positioned by its many connections. In Mexico, we have a long history of having great relations with all countries. So we can deal with the US, we can deal with Europe, but we can also deal with the rising superstar, which is China, and with many other countries. You start seeing the consolidation of agencies like the Latin American Space Agency, or the South American Space Agency, or the South African Space Agency, and how this can benefit from collaborating to do the many things that we're doing in space. But then Dr. Robles mentioned very smartly that we need to have now the private industry involved in this. This is not our fathers or mothers' space programs. This used to be just countries doing this. The new space economy demands the role of the space industry. Right now, like I mentioned, the whole space activity is worth about $400 billion, but it's being predicted, like the Bank of America, that is going to grow into the trillions. We need to tap into that market. We have some of the largest billionaires in the world involved in telecommunications of many things. So if there's anybody in the audience that can grab the attention from those people that are involved in telecommunications, this is a place to get involved. If Mexico doesn't get into this, they're going to lose the race. Right now, this is where the opportunity is. This private industry should get involved. And let's just look at the future of what's coming up. In the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be probably 10 or 12 launches and going to the moon. We're going to have bases by the United States, by Europe, by China, by Russia, and they're going to need all the infrastructure that is needed. Just like on Earth, we're going to need telecommunications and power and ways to extract the oxygen and the metals and to build roads and to manufacture goods and to make all the things that we're going to need on the moon. This is a very important role that Mexico can play. It's just a matter of asking, what are we good at Mexico terrestrially? What are our strengths? And we have many. How can we do this in space? Because it's going to be the same thing. We're going to need the same thing that we're doing here, and how we can identify those. And that's the really important question that we should ask. This is a question that even small countries, the tiniest country in Europe, Luxembourg, asks itself, how can we participate in this? They identify we're a financial capital of the world. Our space agency will be about financing companies. Same thing in Mexico. What are we good at? Manufacturing, robotics, telecommunications, the extractive industry. How is it we can participate? And lastly, like Dr. Landeros said, we are great at politics and law. And now Mexico is playing a very important role at the United Nations with the Hague Working Group on all matters that are going to be addressed in terms of legal aspects. We need to create a new legal framework for space that will involve who can actually access the space debris and recycle it. How can we access the moon and extract resources there? And Mexico is playing a very important role on speaking on behalf of developing countries on how everybody should be involved in this activity. So I think the future is quite bright for Mexico in a variety of things. It's just a matter of getting the government, the private industry, and universities involved in this big endeavor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wood. We have some time for questions from the audience. We have 4 minutes for questions for the audience. And if we cannot answer the questions quick, you can still making the questions, and we will come back in writing manner. Okay, and question number 1 is for Dr. Landeros. Analyzing the advances we have been made in the aerospace sector at the regional level, such as the creation of the Latin American Space Agency, will Mexico be able to have space launch facilities on Mexican soil one day, as well as send Mexicans to the international space stations or in the moon?
Well, the idea of the Latin American Space Agency is to collaborate, to share to share knowledge, to share experiences, to share projects. Some of the countries have already launched platforms, and we don't have. So that is what we can collaborate. For having a platform in Mexico, we need to make some changes in the constitution. So we are working on that. As a matter of fact, there is an initiative to modify Article 28 and Article 73 from the Constitution in order to regulate the launch platforms. So having that, we expect to have a platform here in Mexico. But now what we want to do is to offer our experience in other aspects to the other countries. So that is the point. We have other experiences, and we can take advantage of what they have, or what they have, like Argentina, like Brazil. So we had, what we are going to do is to complement each other, having all the advantage that they have and that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Landeros. It's another question. Based on the history of the military sector from any country, is one of the players on the space development programs, how Mexico will be involved in defense programs in space development, asking for products or services. This question is open to anybody want to answer.
If you want, I can go there first. I mean,
sure.
Really, it is about, and it's very linked to the previous question, like, will we have launching facilities? I would say that shouldn't be the focus, because as also Dr. Abud Madrid said, we need to focus on what we already do and we do well. I mean, there's other people, other countries already with launching facilities. Yes, our let's say defense and army facilities or research and development budgets are not really focusing to space, but there are things that we can do. And for sure, if you don't know, in the aerospace sector, commercial and military, we have facilities within Mexico already servicing the military in the States, in Israel, in Europe. And those are really heavy certifications. I mean, working on there, if you're in the sector, or if you want to look on the internet for ITAR, ITAR regulations, it's really heavy. I mean, it's really something that you need to understand. It's an industry by itself, and we're already doing it. So let's focus on what we already do. Let's focus on what we can do well in order to provide services and products to the customers. Because as some of the panelists were also saying, the industry, it's an industry by itself. It's going to be huge. I mean, if you're in the building industry, you might think, well, I do buildings. Why? I mean, how come? Well, somebody needs to live there. Somebody needs to stay there. And I know for a fact that there's already companies in the United States mainly that are focused on, let's say, building a building for the moon. Okay, so we really need to focus there, because it's going to be a whole industry. It's like going to a new world. And think about it, everything you do on Earth, it's going to be required there with different conditions. So that's going to be an additional challenge. And that's how I see that.
Very well, thank you very much. I think we have time to another for the last question.
No, I would like to, it's possible that I would like to add something to what Carlos said.
Yes, perfect, Dr. Landeros, yes. Actually, this question is also for you, but it's perfect. We can go both. Well,
talking about military, that is not new. Military means telecommunications, applications for in telecommunication, and military are using that. Military is also air observation. Air observation is also military. So what we need to do is just to strengthen these applications but that doesn't mean that we have not been working on military aspects. We have been working on military aspects in many years ago. So that is just what I want to add.
Super good. Dr. Landeros, another question specifically for you, where we can see images from the space mission Atlacom 1. Are there any available in their Facebook page, or where we can find it?
Well, the images are handled by GLTC, the Space GLTC company. So you can contact them. We are having an agreement that they can give us to the Mexican Space Agency. They can give us images, but directly you can contact them. Is LTC company. They are the associates for this international project.
Very well. We have the last question for Dr. Landeros. You say that we'll soon have an event in Baja California for aerospace sector. Can you tell us more about this project?
Well, that was a first conference in experimental rocketry. This was organized by the cluster, the aerospatial cluster of Baja California, and one company, BIND 360, but the participation of several universities was very important. There are universities that are working on rockets design, like the University of Baja California, like University of San Luis Potosí, and other universities. So what they do is to share knowledge, to share experiences, and to launch some small rockets, experimental rockets, to see what is the behavior of these rockets. So this is to grow in the future that we can make big rockets. But now we are in the experimental stage, so that other countries did the same thing. The other countries start with this in this part of the rockets, like India. India start with this kind of experimental rockets, and now they are leaders. They are leaders in the war in the rockets part. So that is the point, that we start with something.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Okay, we have no more time for questions that will come from the audience, but please don't hesitate to send it over, and we will come back to you in writing. Okay, I would like to have some. We have 1 minute for each panelist to express, please, the final comments. They have each one 1 minute for this webinar. How was your experience on it, on this webinar? Please.
Well, I do think that just having the webinar already, it's a very positive point, because just last year or the last 2 years, we were not even talking about space. It's growing fast. It's gonna go at the speed of light, honestly. And I think there's plenty of opportunities in many sectors into the space. Like somebody once said, just look into the stars and foresee what the future can bring. And now, today, in the present, this is more true than ever. So I invite everybody interested in this into looking for what's going on in Mexico, what companies are working in the sector, And it was truly a privilege to be here and talk about this because it's really a very passionate subject. And I was very happy and glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Carlos. Please, Dr. Landeros.
Thank you. I just want to say a few words that space is part of our future, and we are part of the future of space. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Landeros. Please, Dr. Abud.
Well, it was a pleasure to participate in this webinar. If something has been shown in this webinar, is the importance of space. We are so connected with space. We are so dependent on that actually that's what saved the day during the COVID pandemic. We were able to conduct transactions and communications and keep our economy going. And that shows you the value of space. So I just want to leave the audience with a very positive and optimistic outlook of what's coming up. I think that we're transitioning from what I call the adolescence of space in the last 60 years to what will be a very mature field in which we have governments and we have universities and we have companies not only expanding what we can do in space or how far we can go, but we're now be able to stay on planetary bodies and be able to increase the number of commercial activities that are going to happen in space so that we can truly start incorporating space into our global economy. Let's forget about this division that we have between space and Earth. It's no longer there. This is like in the 16th century when the Atlantic was the edge and there was no more. The same thing here. We're expanding and there's opportunities for many countries, especially Mexico. And finally, space has a way to inspire the young and old. The best resource in space is inspiration. And if we continue to do that with this generation, you can assure that this is going to go on from not just ourselves that were inspired by Apollo, and not only this generation that are inspired by SpaceX, but for many, many centuries to come. So my final word would be the activity in space is not only bright, but it's endless. And the time to participate, it's now. Mexico, now.
Very well, thank you very much. Before we say goodbye for today, I'd like to make a little announcement, important announcement on behalf of one of the FEMIA partners, that this is an important announcement in regard of the Earth observation. The company that was mentioned by Dr. Carlos Robles is a Thrusters Unlimited, already invest together with a European company in the purchasing of a very important constellation been flying for some time with a very high definition, one of the high definition satellites, Deimos 2, 75 centimeters. That is competing with the other two biggest Earth observation satellites and providing service to Mexico. And this satellite will be not only exclusively from Mexico, but at 100% serving Mexico territory for the Mexican government, first of all, to the Mexican Space Agency, of course, always in collaboration with Dr. Landeros and his crew. And I like to say that this service is available already 2 months ago. The company is 100% Mexican. So we invite more companies, more entrepreneurs to jump into FEMIA in collaboration with the Mexican Space Agency to take this example of Thrusters Unlimited to start to do the same thing and start not only the programs that will benefit to some companies, but for all the space Mexican community. And thank you I'd like to say thank you for the panelists. I think we have first-class panelists today, and the subject of the space is very passionate. And I think, I hope this Mexico Now has been doing a fantastic job bringing together all these talented and experienced people on board to supply the questions, to bring the answers, I'm sorry, to these important questions. So thank you again to the panelists, Dr. Landeros. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. we really benefit from all your experience and your willingness to share with the rest of us. Also, Dr. Abud, I haven't met you before, but you are a person that is somebody that can be partnered with FEMIA, with some FEMIA partners that will be benefit both from the relation with you. Carlos Robles, Dr. Carlos Robles is a personal friend of mine for a long time. He's also part of the Space Commission of FEMIA. He's a very important counselor to this board, and his experience on the industry, I think, is very hard to beat, because he was one of the pioneers in Mexico to start the aerospace industry factories very seriously, and now he's participating very hard with FEMIA. So thank you very much for everybody, and all I want to say is have a good day.